The attending physician dismissed her with a wave. "Run the standard talk screen again, rookie." But Elena's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she stared at the monitor. The patient was dying. Every protocol said overdose. Every senior nurse agreed. Except the numbers were wrong. She'd seen this before, once, in a classified briefing she wasn't supposed to remember. "This isn't an overdose," she whispered. They laughed, rolled their eyes. One more paranoid first year seeing conspiracies. Then the patient crashed. And Elena did something that would bring federal agents storming through those ER doors in exactly 32 minutes. What she found in that blood sample wasn't just rare. It was supposed to be impossible. The monitor screamed, one continuous tone, flatline. Elena's body moved before her mind caught up. Muscle memory, training that never left. She was on him in 2 seconds, hands positioned over the sternum, fingers interlaced. Compressions, 1, 2, 3, 4, counting aloud, rhythm perfect, depth precise. Then hands grabbed her shoulders, pulled her back, hard. "Stand back, rookie, we've got this." Dr. Brennan took her place. Nurse Thompson prepped the crash cart. The room filled with bodies, senior staff, people who actually knew what they were doing, or thought they did. Elena stumbled backward, hitting the wall. Her chest heaved, not from exertion, from knowing. They shocked him. Once, twice. On the third attempt, the monitor beeped, irregular, weak, but there. The room exhaled as one. "Vital stabilizing," Thompson called out. "Heart rate 62, BP 90/58, respiratory rate shallow but present." Brennan stepped back, wiping his forehead. "Good work, people. Standard overdose protocol. We'll keep him on naloxone drip and monitor for the next 12 hours. Elena's hands clenched at her sides. "No." She moved forward. "Dr. Brennan, I need to show you something." "Not now, Volkov. The metabolic acidosis pattern," Elena pointed at the monitor. "It's not consistent with any common overdose. Look at the lactate levels. They're escalating too rapidly. And the pupil response, it changed at 8-minute intervals, not 15. This isn't opioids. This isn't stimulants. This is something else." Brennan turned. His expression wasn't anger. It was exhaustion mixed with condescension, the look reserved for first years who thought they knew better. 6 months out of school and you're rewriting toxicology? Thompson touched Elena's arm. "Honey, we've seen 100 ODs this month. This is textbook. Pinpoint pupils, respiratory depression, altered consciousness, classic presentation." "But the markers are wrong," Elena insisted. "The timeline doesn't match if you just run an extended tox panel." "We did." Brennan's voice carried finality. "It came back positive for fentanyl and benzodiazepines. Standard street cocktail. Now, unless you have actual evidence and not just a feeling, I need you to step back and let us do our jobs." The dismissal landed, like a physical blow. Elena opened her mouth, closed it, nodded once. She turned and walked toward the supply room, her footsteps measured, controlled, every eye in the ER tracking her retreat, the rookie who thought she knew better. The door closed behind her. Elena leaned against the metal shelving, surrounded by boxes of gloves and sterile packaging. Her breathing came faster now, shallow. They don't see it. They can't see it. But I have. The patterns were there, screaming at her. The specific combination of symptoms, the metabolic cascade, the precise timing of neurological deterioration. Nerve agent, modified organophosphate, weaponized. Her mind flashed back. Couldn't stop it. A briefing room, walls covered in chemical formulas, instructor's voice droning through detection protocols and exposure symptoms, images of molecular structures burned into her memory. This presentation is classified top secret SCI. You never saw this. You were never here. But if you ever encountered these signatures in the field, you'll know exactly what you're looking at. And now she did. The flashback dissolved. She was back in the supply room, back in her scrubs, back in a life she'd built specifically to escape those memories. 5 years hiding what I know, 5 years pretending to be normal, 5 years working overnight shifts and double-checking medication orders and being the eager first year who asked too many questions, but never the right ones. Never the ones that would make people wonder about her background, about her training, about why a former Army medic with specialized CBRN certification was working as a rookie ER nurse in a civilian hospital. Because normal people didn't know how to identify weaponized chemical agents. Normal people hadn't been trained to recognize the difference between VX exposure and carfentanil overdose. Normal people could watch someone die of the wrong diagnosis without their entire world collapsing. The intercom crackled. Code blue. ER bed 7. Code blue. Elena's head snapped up. The patient, again. She burst through the supply room door. The ER exploded with movement, Brennan shouting orders, Thompson pushing medications, the monitor shrieking its alarm, BP dropping, 50/30, heart rate falling, 42, 38, respiratory rate critical. Brain damage in 8 minutes without intervention, 7 minutes, 6. Elena watched them work, watched them push more naloxone, more fluids. Watch them treat an opioid overdose that wasn't an opioid overdose. They're treating the wrong poison. And he was dying because of it. 5 minutes. Thompson's hands shook as she drew up another dose. Brennan's jaw clenched. The monitor's alarm became a countdown to irreversible damage. 4 minutes. Elena's throat closed. Her vision tunneled. She saw another patient, another crisis, another moment when knowing something and doing nothing made you complicit in the death. She had one choice. Break protocol. Break her. Cover. Or watch someone die. And she'd already watched 6 people die once because she couldn't identify the agent fast enough. She'd held their hands while their nervous systems shut down, while their muscles seized, while they drowned in their own fluids because she was 30 seconds too slow with the diagnosis. Not again. Never again. Elena moved. She didn't ask permission, didn't announce her intentions, didn't give anyone time to stop her. She went straight to the crash cart. Her hands found the atropine. She drew up the dose. Massive. Enough to stop a heart if she was wrong, enough to restart one if she was right. What the hell are you doing? Brennan's voice, sharp, commanding. Elena didn't look at him, didn't pause. She moved to the IV line and connected the syringe. Volkov, step away from that patient right now. Her thumb hovered over the plunger. For 1 second, doubt flickered. If she was wrong, she'd just murdered someone. If she was right, she'd just exposed everything she'd spent 5 years hiding. But the monitor showed 3 minutes to brain damage, and she'd been right about this once before, saving his life. Her voice came out different, steady, cold, military precision. She pushed the plunger. The dose flooded his system, massive concentration of anticholinergic, enough to counteract organophosphate poisoning, enough to kill him if this was actually an opioid overdose. Brennan grabbed her arm, tried to pull her back. Security, get her out of here. But Elena didn't move. Her eyes locked on the monitor. 30 seconds of silence. The entire ER held its breath. Then, beep, steady, beep, strengthening. The heart rate climbed, 50, 60, 72, blood pressure rising, 60/40, 80/55, 90/60. Respiratory rate improving, chest rising and falling with increasing strength, color returning to his face, fingers twitching, eyelids fluttering. The monitor's alarm silenced. Thompson's mouth fell open. Brennan's grip on Elena's arm loosened. Security froze in the doorway. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The patient breathed, in and out, regular rhythm, his vitals climbing steadily into normal range. Brennan's voice came out barely above a whisper. That should have killed him. Elena met his eyes. Hers were completely calm now. The panic gone. The doubt erased. It didn't, because I was right. She pulled her arm free from his grip, stepped back, let them all stare, let them see what she'd been hiding. Brennan looked at the monitor, at the patient, at the empty atropine vial in Elena's hand. His face cycled through confusion, shock, and something that might have been fear. What did you just... But Elena was already walking toward the supply room again, her hands steady now, her breathing controlled. She'd saved him. She'd also just destroyed everything. Thompson caught up to her, grabbed her shoulder. Elena, what just happened? What was that? Elena didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Not yet. Because the patient was stable. The crisis was over. And that's when the real problem started. The patient's chest rose and fell, steady, regular, alive. Color bloomed across his face like time-lapse footage of spring returning. His fingers twitched. Small movements, voluntary, the kind that meant brain function was intact. The ER staff stood frozen, a tableau of shock. Thompson broke the silence first. Her voice came out strangled. "How did you know?" Elena's jaw clenched. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run, to disappear into the supply room and never come out, to take back the last 5 minutes and let someone else make the impossible choice. But she couldn't. So she lied. "I didn't. I guessed." The words tasted like acid. Thompson shook her head. "That wasn't a guess. That was." Brennan cut her off. His eyes locked on Elena like a predator tracking prey. That was precision military dosing. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Elena forced herself to breathe, to maintain eye contact, to not show the terror clawing up her throat. "I got lucky." "No." Brennan moved closer. His voice dropped. "Dangerous. You calculated a massive atropine dose for organophosphate poisoning in under 5 seconds. You didn't hesitate. You didn't second guess. You knew exactly what you were doing." Elena's hands were shaking now. She shoved them into her pockets. "I made an educated guess based on the symptom presentation. Then, educate me." Brennan crossed his arms. "Tell me how a 6-month rookie nurse diagnosed something I've never seen in 20 years of emergency medicine." The walls closed in. Elena swallowed hard, looked at the patient, at the monitor showing stable vitals, at the evidence of what she'd just done. She couldn't lie her way out of this, so she gave them the smallest truth that might satisfy. "Test for organophosphates, full advanced tox panel, specifically V-series compounds." The room went silent. Brennan stared at her. "V-series? Those are chemical warfare agents. Just run it. Elena, run it." Her voice came out like steel, like an order, like someone who'd given orders before and expected them to be followed. Brennan's expression shifted. Something clicked behind his eyes. Recognition of authority he hadn't seen 60 seconds ago. He turned to Thompson. "Run the panel. Full spectrum organophosphate screening. Flag anything that even looks like a nerve agent." Thompson nodded and practically ran to the lab. The 40 minutes that followed stretched into eternity. Elena sat in a plastic chair outside the patient's room. Security posted at both exits, not keeping people out, keeping her in. Her leg bounced, constant motion, nervous energy with nowhere to go. Staff whispered, stared, kept their distance. She'd just saved a man's life and somehow become the threat. The minutes crawled, each one heavier than the last, each one carrying her closer to a revelation she couldn't take back. 38 minutes in, the lab tech appeared. His face was the color of old snow. "Dr. Brennan, you need to see this. Now." The tech's hands shook as he pulled up the results on the computer screen. Brennan leaned in. His expression went from curious to confused to horrified in the span of 3 seconds. He read aloud, voice hollow. "VX nerve agent derivative, modified, weaponized." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Silence, complete and total silence. Thompson's voice cracked when she finally spoke. That's not possible. Not in civilian circulation." Elena closed her eyes. Wished she could disappear. Wished she'd been wrong. But she wasn't. She never was. Not about this. Brennan turned on her, moved fast, got right in her face. "Explain. Now." And something in Elena broke. Or maybe it had been broken for 5 years, and this was just the moment it finally shattered completely. Her posture changed, spine straightened, shoulders back, chin up. The hunched apologetic stance of a first-year nurse evaporated. What stood in its place was someone else entirely. Her voice came out different, clipped, precise, medical terminology delivered with the efficiency of a tactical briefing. Modified acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. Blocks neural transmission at the synaptic level. Standard symptoms mimic opioid overdose, pinpoint pupils, respiratory depression, altered consciousness. But the metabolic markers are wrong. She moved to the computer, pulled up the patient's chart, pointed to specific data points. Lactic acidosis develops faster than any opioid profile. See here, elevation at 12 minutes, should be 25 to 30 with fentanyl. Muscle fasciculations present earlier. Here. Timestamp shows onset at 8 minutes. Standard overdose wouldn't show until 15 minimum. Her finger traced the pupil response measurements and the pupil response to light. Changes at 8-minute intervals, not 15. Constriction follows a specific pattern, 3 millimeters, 2.5, 2.1. Exact progression. I've seen it before. She stepped back, met Brennan's eyes. This is a weaponized nerve agent, modified for delayed onset and symptom masking, designed to look like something else until it's too late to treat. Brennan's face had gone pale. Where? His voice barely above a whisper. Where have you seen weaponized nerve agents? The security officer chose that moment to appear in the doorway. Radio crackling. Nobody leaves this ER. We're on lockdown. Then, the hospital administrator. Out of breath. Panicked. I've called the authorities. Federal authorities. They're on their way. No. The word screamed through Elena's mind. No, no, no. They can't know. They can't find out. 5 years of hiding, 5 years of building a new life, 5 years of running from who she used to be, all of it crashing down in a single shift. Thompson approached, slowly, like Elena might bolt. Her voice came out soft, almost gentle. Elena, who are you really? The question landed like a punch. Elena looked at her. At Brennan. At the security officer and the administrator and the lab tech who discovered a chemical weapon in a routine tox screen. At all the people who thought they knew her. She was so tired of lying. I was Army, Special Operations Medic, Chemical Weapons Response. The words felt like pulling shrapnel from a wound. Thompson's eyes widened. Was? I left, Elena's voice cracked. Medical discharge. I wanted normal. I wanted to leave that behind. Brennan shook his head. You diagnosed a weaponized chemical agent in an ER overdose. That's not normal medical training. No. Elena met his gaze. It's not. Before anyone could respond, the patient seized, violent, whole body convulsing, monitor screaming. Elena moved. No hesitation, no asking permission. Pure instinct and training taking over. Secondary exposure protocol. Now, her voice carried command, authority, the kind that made people obey without thinking. Strip the room, seal all clothing in hazmat bags, full decontamination for everyone who touched him. Gloves off, gowns off, contained and sealed, move. The staff moved. They didn't question, didn't argue. They just obeyed. Because Elena wasn't a rookie anymore. She was whoever she'd been before, and that person knew exactly what to do. She stabilized the patient, administered another dose of atropine, adjusted the IV, monitored vitals with the precision of someone who'd done this 100 times under worse conditions. The seizure stopped. Vitals stabilized again. Elena stepped back, breathing hard, her hands steady despite everything. And someone tell me who this patient is. She looked around the room, at the staff following her orders without question, because someone targeted him. The security officer pulled out his tablet, ran the patient's ID through the system. His expression shifted. James Volkman, federal prosecutor, DOJ Organized Crime Division. Elena closed her eyes. Everything clicked into place. That's why. Brennan frowned. Why what? Why someone used a weapon that doesn't exist on paper to kill him? The implications settled over the room like fallout. A federal prosecutor, targeted with a classified nerve agent in the middle of a civilian hospital. This wasn't random. This was an assassination, and Elena had just stopped it. The doors burst open. 6 agents, FBI windbreakers, weapons visible, faces hard. The lead agent surveyed the room. His eyes swept over the staff, the equipment, the patient. Nobody move. This is a crime scene. His gaze locked on Elena. She stood there, covered in the patient's contaminated clothing, hands still gloved, hair falling out of its ponytail, looking exactly like what she was. Someone who'd just fought a war in the middle of an emergency room. And you, the agent's voice cut through the silence. You're the nurse who identified the agent. Elena nodded, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Come with us, now. It wasn't a request. Elena's hands fell to her sides. The gloves came off, dropped into the hazmat bag. She walked forward, past Brennan, past Thompson, past the security officer and the administrator and all the people who'd thought they knew her. The agents surrounded her, professional, efficient, guiding her toward the exit. She looked back once, met Thompson's eyes, saw the question there, the confusion, the betrayal. Elena turned away. Everything I ran from just caught up, the doors closed behind her, and the life she'd built for 5 years died in that emergency room. The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and fear. Elena sat in a metal chair, hands folded on the table, back straight, every instinct screaming at her to run, but 6 federal agents blocked the exits. Lead Agent Morrison stood across from her, tall, graying hair, eyes that had seen too much and believed too little. He hadn't sat down since they'd brought her in 40 minutes ago. Talk, everything, starting with how a rookie ER nurse identifies a black ops poison. Elena's throat was dry. I told you, military training. Morrison's hand slammed down on the table. A file landed in front of her, thick, official, stamped with classifications she recognized. He flipped it open, started reading. Captain Elena Volkov, 75th Ranger Regiment, Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear Defense, Honorable Discharge 2019, Classified Clearance Level, Top Secret SCI, Specialized Training in Advanced Threat Recognition, Field Antidote Administration, and Unconventional Warfare Medical Response. He looked up. Want to try again? Elena stared at the file, at her own face in the military ID photo. Younger, harder, different person entirely. You've been doing research on me. Morrison leaned forward. You identified a poison that officially doesn't exist. Yes, we researched you. What I want to know is why a decorated special operations medic is working the night shift in a civilian ER under a name that doesn't match her service record. Elena's hands clenched. I legally changed it after discharge. Why? Because I wanted to disappear. The words came out raw, honest, more than she'd meant to give. Morrison pulled out a chair, sat down. His voice shifted. Less interrogation, more conversation. Why are you working as a first-year nurse? Elena's eyes closed. The question she'd been avoiding for 5 years. Her voice dropped, barely audible. Kandahar, 2018. Chemical attack on forward operating base. I was the CBRN specialist on site. She paused, breathing through the memory. 17 soldiers exposed. I saved 11. Another pause. Longer. 6 died while I was trying to identify the agent. The room went silent. Morrison waited. Elena forced herself to continue. I couldn't save them all. I kept seeing their faces, every shift, every emergency. Every time I looked at a patient, I saw them, dying. While I ran tests and checked symptoms and tried to figure out what was killing them fast enough to actually help. Her voice cracked. I couldn't do it anymore. So you quit. So I broke. Medical discharge for PTSD. Started over. New career, new name, no weapons, no warfare. Just people who overdose or fall or get sick like normal people. Morrison studied her, really looked at her, like he was seeing past the nurse scrubs to the soldier underneath. And tonight? Tonight someone brought warfare into my ER. Morrison stood, walked to a laptop at the end of the table, pulled up files. 3 deaths in the past 6 weeks, all ruled accidental overdoses. He rotated the screen toward her. Autopsy reports, side by side. Different victims, different dates, different locations. What do you see? Elena stared at the reports. Her brain shifted. Military training overriding 5 years of deliberate forgetting. She leaned forward. Fingers traced patterns across the screen. Same metabolic markers. Lactic acidosis elevation at 12 to 14 minutes. Same pupil response timeline. Constriction at 8-minute intervals. Same muscle fasciculation onset. Her finger moved to the toxicology sections. Same lactic acidosis curve. Identical progression. She looked up. These weren't overdoses either. No. Morrison's voice was grim. They weren't. But you're the first person who caught it in time. The door opened. Another agent entered. Younger, carrying a tablet. He nodded to Morrison. Folkman was prosecuting the Antonov Syndicate, Russian organized crime. He pulled up an organizational chart. Names, photos, connections spreading like a spider web. 3 witnesses dead. 2 federal agents dead. All accidental. All within the prosecution timeline. Elena's stomach dropped. Someone's eliminating the case against them with a poison nobody's trained to recognize. Morrison's eyes locked on hers. Except you. The implications crashed over her like a wave. This wasn't random. This wasn't a single assassination attempt. This was systematic elimination, coordinated, professional, and she was the only person who could identify it. Morrison moved closer. We need you to help us identify the source. This compound isn't standard VX. It's been modified, enhanced, made to mimic common substances so it passes standard tox screens. Elena stood, chair scraping back. No, I'm done with this world. Find another expert. There is no other expert. Morrison pulled up another file. Death certificate. The chemist who could identify this died in a car accident 3 weeks ago. Witness number 2. Elena froze. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. You're the only person who's seen this poison and lived to tell about it. The only person with the training to analyze it. The only person who can help us stop it. I can't. 4 more people are going to die if you don't. I said no. The door burst open. A nurse, one of the ER staff, out of breath. Agent Morrison, the patient. Folkman, he's awake. He's asking for the nurse, the young one, Elena. He won't talk to anyone else. Morrison looked at Elena. Seems he knows who saved him. The walk back to the ER felt like a funeral march. Agents flanked her. Professional. Silent. Escorting her through hallways that suddenly felt foreign. They stopped outside Folkman's room. Elena took a breath, stepped inside. The federal prosecutor looked small in the hospital bed, IV lines snaking from his arms, monitor beeping steady, face pale but alert. His eyes found her immediately. You knew. Immediately. Elena moved closer. I recognized the signs. Folkman's hand shook as he reached for something on the bedside table. A photo. He held it up. My wife. They said she died. Overdose. 3 weeks ago. His voice broke. Was it? Elena took the photo, looked at the woman's face. Young, smiling, alive in the frozen moment. She pulled up the death certificate on the tablet Morrison handed her, scanned the toxicology report, the timeline, the symptoms documented by the responding paramedics. Her hands shook slightly. No, it wasn't. Folkman wept, deep shaking sobs that racked his entire body, grief and rage and guilt pouring out in equal measure. Then his face hardened. He looked at Elena with eyes that had seen everything taken from him. Help them. Please. Stop these bastards. Elena stepped back, couldn't speak, couldn't promise. She left the room. Morrison waited outside. We have 4 other potential targets, all linked to the Antonov case. He pulled up photos on his tablet, federal judges, witnesses, a forensic accountant, a single mother with 2 kids who'd testified about financial transactions. We can put them in protective custody, but we can't protect them from a poison we can't detect. Elena stared at the photos, at the single mother's face, at the 2 kids standing beside her. How many more deaths before someone else figures this out? Morrison's voice was quiet. How many 6 body counts? Elena's voice cracked. That's not fair. No, it's not. But it's real. The words hit like physical blows. Elena stood there, surrounded by agents, surrounded by evidence, surrounded by the reality she'd been running from for 5 years. And something inside her shifted. Her spine straightened, shoulders back, head up, the posture of someone who'd given orders and led missions and saved lives under fire. Captain Volkov surfaced. I need full access to the blood samples, all 5 cases. I need a proper lab, not a hospital setup. And I need the FBI's chemical database, every classified compound, every experimental synthesis, everything. Morrison nodded. Done. And Morrison? Elena's voice came out different. Command, authority. The voice of someone who'd led soldiers into combat zones. I'm not a nurse right now. I'm Captain Volkov, so stop treating me like a civilian consultant. Morrison almost smiled. Yes, ma'am. They walked back through the ER. Staff stared, whispered, backed away. Brennan intercepted them near the nurses' station. The FBI requested your personnel file. Who are you? Elena met his eyes. Someone who tried to run from who I was. Someone who just remembered why I was trained this way. Thompson appeared, quieter, hurt in her expression. Are you coming back? I don't know. Elena's voice softened. First, I have to stop people from dying. She left. The FBI lab was nothing like the hospital: proper equipment, advanced spectrometry, chemical databases that required 3 levels of clearance to access. Elena worked for 3 hours straight, blood samples from all 5 cases spread across workstations, molecular structures projected on screens, synthesis pathways mapped out in intricate detail. She compared compounds, traced modifications, identified enhancement patterns. And then she stopped, went completely still. No, that's impossible. Morrison looked up from his laptop. What? Elena's hands trembled as she pulled up a classified file. This modification, this specific enhancement, there are only 3 chemists in the world capable of this synthesis. She typed rapidly, pulled up personnel records. One's dead, one's in a Russian prison. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. And the third? Elena's face drained of color. Her voice came out hollow. Dr. Alexei Morozov, my instructor, my mentor, the man who taught me everything I know about chemical weapons. Pause. The man who I thought died in Kandahar. Morrison moved closer. You're saying your mentor is alive and creating weapons for the Russian mob? Elena pulled up communication logs, system access records, her hands shaking now. I'm saying someone with his exact synthesis signature is, and 3 days ago, someone accessed the classified database containing the Kandahar attack files. Morrison leaned over her shoulder. With whose credentials? Elena barely whispered. Mine. Someone's using my credentials. The room went cold. Then this isn't just about Antonov? No. Elena pulled up more files, access logs, location data, movement patterns. Someone's framing me, making it look like I'm the source, like I'm providing the compounds. She looked at Morrison. And if Morozov is alive? Her voice failed. Morrison finished the thought. Then he knows exactly where to find me. Morrison's jaw clenched. If they're tracking you, we use that. Elena stared at him. As bait? As the expert who can identify them on sight, the plan formed quickly. Elena returns to the hospital. Normal shift, full surveillance, agents positioned throughout the building, cameras monitoring every entrance, waiting. If Morozov is alive, if he's here, he'll come for you. Morrison's voice was steady. To silence you or recruit you. Elena's hands were shaking again. Either way, we'll be ready. The ER felt different when she walked back in. Same fluorescent lights, same smell of antiseptic and fear, same chaos of a Friday night shift. But everything had changed. Staff watched her, whispered, kept their distance like she carried contamination. Maybe she did. Brennan approached, his expression unreadable. FBI says you stay on shift. Orders from the top. Elena nodded, tied her hair back, put on fresh scrubs. Thompson appeared, quieter than usual, hurt, still visible in her eyes. Are you in danger? Probably. Elena met her gaze. But 4 other people definitely are if I don't do this. Thompson touched her arm. Be careful. The hours crawled. Every patient made Elena's pulse spike. Every ambulance arrival sent adrenaline flooding through her system. She checked vitals, administered medications, followed protocols, and waited for the trap to spring. It came at 2:43 in the morning. Ambulance, lights flashing, paramedics rushing through doors, overdose, male, mid-30s, unresponsive. Elena's instincts flared. Everyone back, now. Her voice carried command. Staff froze. She approached the patient, checked vitals, pupil response, muscle tone. Her blood turned to ice. This is another one. Same agent, but something was wrong. She pulled the patient's wallet, checked the ID. Name didn't match any target on Morrison's list. No connection to the Antonov case. No federal involvement. Random civilian. Unless. Elena's eyes went to the patient's belongings bag. She opened it. Inside, a vial, small, glass, sealed, and a note. For Captain Volkov. We should talk. M. Her hands trembled as she held it. This isn't a hit. Morrison's voice crackled in her earpiece. What? This is a delivery. She pulled up the hospital access logs on the nearest computer, scanned entry records for the past hour. Service entrance, accessed 40 minutes ago. Badge registered to maintenance staff. But the maintenance worker wasn't scheduled tonight. Someone entered through service entrance. Elena's voice was quiet, still inside. Morrison's response was immediate. We're coming in. No. Elena stood. He'll disappear. I know him. I have to go alone. Elena, that's not. I said alone. She removed her earpiece, left it on the desk, walked toward the service elevators, down. The basement level smelled like old pipes and forgotten storage, chemical storage room, end of the hallway, door slightly ajar. Elena pushed it open. Dr. Alexei Morozov stood among shelves of outdated supplies, older than she remembered, gray hair where there'd been black, lines etched deep around his eyes, but alive, impossibly alive. You died. Elena's voice cracked. I saw the after-action report. Morozov's smile was sad. You saw what they wanted you to see, Elena. I didn't die in Kandahar. I was extracted. By who? By the same government that sent us there, the same government that wanted my research, that used us. Lena's hand moved to her waistband, found the weapon Morrison had given her, drew it. You're killing innocent people. Morozov didn't flinch. I'm killing prosecutors who chase Russian assets while American agencies do the same. The hypocrisy. I'm just evening the scales. You're a murderer. And what are the people who deployed chemical weapons on their own soldiers? What are the officials who extract scientists and fake their deaths? What are the agents who use former soldiers as bait? His voice was gentle, almost kind. You were my best student. You understood the science, the artistry. I understood how to save people from people like you. You saved 11 that day. Morozov moved closer. I created the antidote that made it possible. Without me, all 17 die. Elena faltered. You made the agent that killed them. No, I made both, the weapon and the cure. Do you know who chose to deploy only one? He pulled documents from his coat. Classified stamps, official seals. Your credentials weren't stolen, Elena. They were reactivated. By your own government. They wanted to draw me out. You're lying. Am I? Morozov's eyes bore into hers. How did the FBI know about 5 connected deaths so quickly? How did Morrison have your file ready the moment you identified the compound? Elena's doubt showed. They needed someone who could identify your work. They needed someone I cared about enough to contact. You were always the trap. The words hit like bullets. Morrison's voice crackled, faint, from the earpiece she'd left upstairs. Captain, we have the shot. Confirm target. Elena looked at Morozov. He's unarmed. He's trying to surrender. Morrison's voice harder. He's a war criminal. Confirm. Morozov's expression didn't change. They won't let me talk, Elena. They can't. I know too much. Elena's hand shook, weapon still raised. Then, talk now. Who ordered Kandahar? Morozov started speaking. Names, programs, classified operations that officially didn't exist. American officials, Russian counterparts, scientists working for both sides simultaneously. We were all working for the same masters, different flags, same poison. Elena's other hand pulled out her phone. Started recording. Morrison's voice in the distance. Captain, stand down. That's an order. Elena's voice was steady. I'm discharged, remember? Not your captain anymore. Morozov kept talking, details pouring out, evidence, testimony, truth that people had killed to keep buried. Then the red laser dot appeared on Morozov's chest. Elena saw it, moved without thinking. No. She stepped between him and the window. Morozov's hands grabbed her shoulders, pushed her aside. His voice was soft. You were always too good for this world, Elena. The gunshot didn't come from where Elena expected. Not the FBI sniper position. Different angle. Different window. The bullet hit Morozov's center mass. He fell. Blood spreading across his chest. Elena dropped beside him, hands moving automatically. Pressure, assessment, training taking over. But she knew. She'd seen enough chest wounds to know. Morozov's hand found hers, weak, trembling. The antidote, for the new version, in my coat pocket. Save the next one. His eyes closed. He stopped breathing. Elena's hands found his coat pocket, pulled out a vial. Formula scribbled on paper, notes detailing synthesis and application. Morrison burst through the door, agents flooding in behind him. Elena. She stood, held up her phone. I recorded everything, every name, every program, and if anything happens to me, it publishes. Automatically. Morrison's face went pale. You just made yourself a massive target. Or insurance. Elena's voice was ice. Your call. 2 weeks passed like a fever dream. Folkman recovered, testified. The case against Antonov proceeded with new security protocols. 3 more assassination attempts, all prevented using Morozov's antidote formula. The hospital board convened. Elena sat in a conference room, FBI brass on one side, hospital administration on the other. Brennan stood. We request Elena Volkov be reinstated with full privileges and appointed to lead a new toxicology threat assessment program. The FBI director nodded. The Bureau concurs. We need someone who can bridge medical and military expertise. All eyes turned to Elena. She met their gazes, one by one, on one condition. This program protects civilians. No weapons development. Ever. Morrison, standing in the back, nodded. Agreed. Elena accepted. 3 months later. Lecture hall. Rows of seats filled with ER staff, FBI agents, hospital personnel from across the country. Elena stood at the front, presentation projected behind her, on screen, a photo of Morozov, marked with 2 words. Remember why. Chemical weapons don't just appear on battlefields. Elena's voice carried clearly. They appear in our ERs, our homes, and someone has to know how to recognize them. A hand raised. Young resident, front row. How do you live with knowing this stuff exists? Elena paused. You don't run from it. You face it, and you save the people you can. The lecture ended. Elena gathered her materials, laptop, notes, training manuals. Her phone buzzed. Morrison's name on the screen. Potential exposure. Chicago ER. Symptoms match. Elena grabbed her go bag, already packed, always ready. Send me the labs. Thompson appeared in the doorway. You're leaving? Not leaving. Elena shouldered the bag, responding. This is what I do now. She walked through the hospital corridors, past the ER where it all started, past the supply room where she'd hidden, past the staff who'd dismissed her. They called me a rookie. Her internal voice, steady now, sure, dismissed me, doubted me. The exit doors opened, but I stopped running from who I was. Outside, FBI helicopter waiting, blades spinning. And now? Elena climbed aboard. Now I save people from the threats they can't see coming. The helicopter lifted. The hospital fell away below, because someone has to.